Welcome to today's collective reading. This is TrinityGaiaOracle. Today's reading is going to be more of a download, a channeling that has come through. As you can tell from the title, it is more of a global message. It's inclusive. It's meant to reach the human spirit. There is somewhat of a concern that is being brought to light, and I'm sure that there are many other individuals in the collective that are picking up on this, if they have spoken to it or not. The concern will affect each and every one of us in a different way in our future, and the decisions that we make and the path that we choose, and the message needs to reach as many as possible. It is important to remain grounded in the salt of the earth, the moment-to-moment experience of being alive, being human, caring for others, and yet also striving to survive and thrive in a world that may feel like it's always under competition. A scarcity mindset seems to be pretty prevalent, and to not be able to acknowledge that would be to be willingly choosing not to see something that is right there. And when you're feeling, especially on a global level, this need to actually be informed fully, that requires that you see the things that maybe you don't necessarily want to, and you speak to the things that you don't necessarily want to be true, but are. It's the concept that the first step in remedying a situation is acknowledging that there's a situation. Then you can create change through that acknowledgement, even just through acknowledging it, as well as, yes, being grounded in that physical, being able to interface with this beingness that we have such a limited language for, but the predominant words that we have is, God, source, divine. These words have triggers of their own. The concern and the warning moving in to our future is around our technology. You don't necessarily have to look far to find information available on the proof, as well as it being presented within the concept or the construct of a conspiracy. That the technology that we are developing is of great concern, because it can lead us down a path that we won't be able to come back from. Being able to use hardware to create a telepathic connection artificially from your mind to another mind. And I say it's artificial because we already have that ability. We don't need hardware to do that for us. We have that ability. We've always had that ability. There is so much evidence that our world is well aware that the human being is capable of telepathic connection to another human being, to animals, to all that is. We're able to expand our awareness in this way. To add a technological device to that, well, yes, in some ways it can make a huge improvement given specific medical conditions. And it has. And that is beautiful, but it's not telepathic. You have to look at what is uncomfortable to really appreciate the warning. Being that we are already capable of this, the forces of good and, for a lack of a better word, evil, good, or bad, these are all human constructs. This system that is here, that is built into our biology and our energetic being. The frustration of the box that the words give. We are beyond those boundaries. That system is perfect. And it is designed for us to grow, evolve, heal. For us to be happier, healthier, more empowered. To know that to be of loving of self is going to allow us to be selfless in service to others, because some people they don't have that, and you may have a little bit of something to help them. The metaphor of, if you do not fill your own cup, you have nothing to share. You must nurture your temple, your energy, your mind, your emotions, so that you could be your best self. And when you have that connection and you have that awareness, yes, you're going to be challenged. Yes, there's going to be things that you don't like to experience. But in moving through that experience, trusting that as long as you're willing to believe that it will work out, it will. You will overcome those challenges, those obstacles, no matter how painful they may be. They bring awareness to you of how strong you are. To have faith in instances, faith and love in situations that you know, because you've observed it, that many were not able to overcome. And you're humbled because you know you didn't do it alone. Love played a role, however, directly or seemingly at a distance, it played a role. And at a distance, that's that telepathic connection. In being that system is perfect. It's been in place and working with our biology for a very, very long time. We are designed to interface in that way. It is our natural state. When you add in technology, what do you know of technology? We're not going to bring it down to earth here right now. I know that right now they recommend that you have antivirus, a firewall. If you don't have a VPN, you at least have a DNS, that you have to safeguard your information, store it remotely. You have to do backups. There's the cloud. Depending on who owns that cloud, you've signed a privacy policy. How much of that information do you even own? Are you actually sure that it's secure? These are all questions that come up. And then you add that something like that is going to be wired into your brain. You're not going to be needing a cell phone anymore. That means that your brain can be hacked, that your brain could be corrupted. I know I've had computers that have had a corrupt file, and after a while, you just don't get to use it anymore. And that kind of an aspect was hardwired into the human biology? Oh my gosh, that is scary. Can you imagine that would be something that would be your experience? You wake up one day and suddenly you can't do a basic thing, or your hardware is constantly sending inappropriate messages to everyone you're connected to. How easy would it be to frame you for your thoughts that were actually malware? Like, this can really get out of hand. This is a form of slavery, really. That is what we're moving into. If we think as human beings that we can improve upon what nature created, that means the divine. That means God created. That we can do better. We are playing with things we don't understand, that are beyond this reality. But it's very apparent in our current experience that we have to develop discernment with every bit of information that comes in, that we're exposed to. And we have to come up with our own conclusion, because we cannot trust that this is the actual account, or that this really is what's happening, or that perspective is the right one. We have to go, well, this is what they say is going on, but this is what the pictures say. But then it's like, but AI could create those pictures, so what's the real picture? And then it comes down to something very basic. And this is where the guidance, hey, this is what's coming, and I am, there's like a sense of parenting. It's a choice, it's an action. If you have been watching this channel's content, to be of a masculine archetype is to be of assertive energy, to act. That is why it is labeled parenting as fathering. It is an action of parenting. It is a choice to interface with that was created and guided. It is not about the human concept of what it is to be male. It is beyond that. It is a choice to take action, to be a parent, to take responsibility to guide. That connects with Gaia, the receptive. Gaia has a soul, and Gaia has to remain balanced too. And what human beings are doing right now, we're redefining who we are. We're redefining where we want to go, who we want to be, what we want our future to be like. And it's because we know there's consequences for all of us. It is irresponsible to think that one corner of the planet has the right to make the decision for everyone else on the planet. I'm not labeling anybody. I'm not labeling any one group or any one area. We all, from that level, take part in that. And as a parent, this is the future coming for us. And it affects our planet. It affects our ability to continue on as we are. If we could be remote controlled because we consented to having hardware installed in our brains, we are signing up for slavery. I'm not saying that it will be that way immediately. I'm not saying that it's not going to have its pros and be pitched really well, like maybe you could live twice as long. I'm not going to say that it's not going to sound like a really good idea. But when it comes to, like, my experience, this channel's experience, doctors don't have all the answers. They don't. In fact, most of the time, they don't know. They are basically owned by their student loan debt, and the company that they work for doesn't allow them to actually treat their patients the way that they would want to, or they get fired. And then how are they going to pay their student loans? They're basically in a state of slavery themselves. So our doctors, allopathic medicine, they are not the answer. Most of what this channel has experienced in healing herself has been in co-creation and guidance with divine, and trusting that Gaia will provide the answers that have healed this channel, this physical being that I am, has been found in natural means, has been found through doing research and making up my own mind, and trusting the input from my intuition, my God, my divine, and knowing that Mother Nature knows more than we do. Penicillin. When we found that, it changed everything. But what we did is we decided that We knew more than Mother Nature, and all that extra stuff that was found in its raw form, we didn't need that. We only took the active parts. Maybe we needed all that stuff that we didn't understand for reasons we don't know. Maybe there were benefits in that we didn't understand. And we only take the active ingredient, and we're missing out on all the other good stuff because human beings decided that they knew more. These are just examples. The other example, which is pretty controversial, is all the research that has gone into the medical benefits of CBD. There are little kids that are growing up to be young adults that have a chance at a life because some human beings decided that Mother Nature knew some things that, the allopathic doctors or the scientists didn't. And they kept looking, and they knew that there was a reason why the natural plant put so much of its energy into producing X, Y, or Z part of the plant. They knew. The Mother Nature doesn't do things by accident like that. And they wanted to, not just to know if it was a positive, but if there was somehow some kind of a negative, if taken in, a certain format or quantity or processed in a certain way, etc. It was wise to learn from Mother Nature and know that that was created between Mother Nature, Gaia, and the divine has a hand in all of it. All of it. There's a reason our minds go to a happier place when we're outside, because we're surrounded by beautiful math, and our brains disconnect from this illusion that our life is about how many likes we get. We connect into who we truly are in this moment. And there's peace in that. And that is where the concept of being capable as the beings that we are created to be, there is nothing about us that is a mistake. All of it is exactly the way it was intended to be created. We are capable right now of connecting to one another telepathically. Why do we need hardware to do that? There are different ways to look at it, but what is being highlighted is the negative narrative, because this is a warning. Think about it. Do your own research. Talk to somebody you trust about it. Get their feedback. Let it sit with you to make up your mind of what you want to move into, what you want humanity to become for your children and your grandchildren. What are you willing to vote yes to for their experience? When I was a young woman, X, Y, or Z, that is created now and is too expensive to be covered by insurance, would radically change my quality of life. What if I had that when I was 15, 20? How different would my life look? Like, there is going to be somewhat of a delay in everyone's life. For example, my mother once said to me that she sees herself as like an old woman, no matter where she is, not able to drive, not able to do X, Y, or Z, just having that automatic vehicle that she could call up and say, I need to get to my doctor's appointment. She gets in the vehicle and it takes her there. She doesn't have to drive. She doesn't have to worry. That is something that is a reality for a lot of people right now. And it's something that could become a reality more and more all over our planet. And it could be something that's available that is free of damaging our environment. But she said this to me 20, 30 years ago, before the electric car was so commonly accepted. And now we have like automatic driving technology. These things are going to have a bit of delay. So when you make a choice about how you feel about this now, it will impact your children and your grandchildren. because it will come into full effect in their life. So there's a level of humbleness, of responsibility that we each have to create that future for them, because the decisions that we make now create it for someone else, not for our own lives, necessarily. I could not look at a child and say, you know what, I want to make it so it's possible for you to have your brain hacked and your life ruined. And that's the negative side. And we have to look at it, because it's negligent not to. If they can create it, if human beings can create it, it can be broken into, it could be corrupted, it can end up with a life of its own. And I know that it's kind of a heavy thing. We're at a point in this world where we can't afford to not look at these things and consider that someone that doesn't have the best of intentions for us, or someone's, could end up controlling all of us because we opted to allow this to be a thing when we were already made for it. There's a undercurrent of, it's not because they want to set you free. You're already free. You're already capable of connecting in this way. And I'm not going to tell you that it's not scary to become aware of it, because it is. It is. Many people in many places around our planet, this is some taboo stuff to talk about. It could really, really rock your world if you were to just start talking about this to just anybody. That's why this is here. That's why there's so much information available now, because there's so many people going through it. Because it needs to be evident that we don't need the hardware to do it. And the undercurrent, what has been present for just about all of us, and observing, even though we're individuals and we're small and we don't want to break from the pack and stand up and go, hey, like, what are you doing? Governments are there to protect us, but they're also able to protect us through control. And it's been very apparent that they are capable of being betrayed too, within their own systems. There is somewhat of a shadow group of individuals all over our planet that are making decisions for all of us when we have not given them power to do that. We haven't agreed to that. But they're making decisions on our behalf like they have. And they don't. They don't have that agreement, because the things that they have done, you can't paint it any other way than evil, wrong, predatory, unnecessary. And that's not who most of us are. That's not what most of us want. Most of us just want to live our lives and be left alone, to live them, to love one another and have kids and raise families and enjoy living our lives fully. Most of us don't want to make waves. But the waves are coming right now, whether we want to deal with them or not. So this is an invitation, a call, a warning to learn, so that you can discern the truth that you can own, that you know where you stand and why, that no one is telling you what you believe, what is right, what is wrong. You know what's right, you know what's wrong. But you're not given a story and expected to just believe it. Because ultimately, it's about controlling us. That's why the concept of slavery came out. It may not be manacles. It may not be a collar around our neck, but it's a piece of technology in our brain that can completely control where we go, what we do, what we think, what we say. And it can completely fabricate a bunch of stuff that's never been said, thought, felt, or done. The movie Minority Report comes to mind. That being our reality, that is a concept where it was used to do great harm, to serve a corrupt few. We do not need technology to communicate telepathically, but the powers that be, because, whoever they are, wherever they are, and whatever their agenda, they want to control everything we think, say, do. They have many motivations. Some of them are under somewhat of a self-delusion that it's actually selfless or for a good reason. The minority are aware that the message that they are ultimately going to end up be sending, and that most of us will know immediately, is like, yeah, we see where this is going. Well, we have to do this to keep you safe. This is about protecting you. There was a short that I'll see about getting on the channel so you guys can access it, but it really resonates. Yes, there is the concept that there are people in your life that are roots. They're meant to stay. They're going to be there come hell or high water. They are a part of you. And then there are people that are branches that aren't necessarily core to your life. Maybe they're acquaintances, people you could consistently count on to do X, Y, or Z in your life, but they're not there for your entire life. Maybe they're your bestie through college, but they're not going to be there when you're a parent or when you're, an empty nester kind of a deal. And then you have the leaves, the people that are, you have an exchange and you have karma. You have karma to settle. It's not necessarily bad. You learn something about yourself and they learn something about themselves, and then you're not in each other's lives anymore. It could be a really good experience, actually, between the two of you. Like, maybe it's just like a weekend retreat somewhere, or you had camp together as kids. Either way, they were in your life for a brief period of time, and then life went on. There is wisdom in that. This one talks about, it was different. I couldn't find another one like it. And it's from a movie. And there's this gentleman who talks about 3 kinds of people. And the cages that we agree to, whether we're ignorant of them or we're consciously aware of them, but we agree to live within inside this parameter. I don't remember specifically off the top of my head all 3. But the ones that, like, of the 2 that really stood out to me in particular, and there's a reason for that. And it was using prison as an example. It makes sense, being that it's a cage. So do, apply it in a concept of a metaphor. And that would be like your cellmate, the person that's in it with you. Now, they can have a good side and a bad side to them. Say, you're about to get out. Well, maybe they don't want to lose their cellmate because they really like you, or they, for whatever reason, they're scared of who would take your place because they don't know, and you're like their safety blanket. So they may try to facilitate you getting in trouble so you remain, to handicap you. But they may try to do it in a way that you don't know. And this is someone who is presented as your best friend. And they would knowingly sabotage you to not lose you. Now, you could have a cellmate, a bestie, a person in it with you who is like, yeah, you're getting out, man. Grow. Do your thing. I'm still going to be here. I'm still be your friend. You come visit me, like whatever you want to do. But I want you to have a better life than living here because I genuinely care about you. And that always starts with them loving themselves. If they don't love themselves, they can't necessarily make that leap. So the concept of who is in this with you, who is standing beside you, who is going to pay a price for your choices. Are you going to be the person that loves yourself enough to know that you want that relationship with that celly, that bestie, to always be that bright spot? To not let it be tarnished in any way because you were scared to be without them. So you harmed them in order to keep them with you. Like that, the self-love, it is so important to actually be of service for others. You have to fill your own cup first. Then you can let it overflow onto others. The last type that he talked about were the key holders, the gatekeepers, the individuals that remind you that you were never locked in the first place. And this is something that is being discussed, that is being channeled, being brought to the attention to be talked about, because which one do you see yourself in? And do you see yourself in all of them? And to what degree? And if you see something in that you don't necessarily like, hey, you're aware of that. That means you can choose to grow and evolve beyond that. So you can see yourself like, man, look at where I was. And look at where I am. And I didn't do that alone. Because that kind of thought, that kind of way of looking at yourself and those around you, you're not alone. We are all in this. And we can't get away from one another. We can't, even if we were to go to the moon or go to Mars, there's consequences for going there too. I don't know about you, but there's not many people I could be trapped in a tin can with for a very long period of time. And yeah, there is, I saw it the other day. There's a social experiment where you are to spend 100 days living in this rather comfortable housing that's right off a cliff. Literally, you're living off the cliff and you have no internet. It's just you. And they recommend you bring somebody for your mental health, but ultimately you always end up arguing. So when you're doing this research, when you're coming to your own conclusions, when you're looking at everything that comes to you in the guise of news, this is the opportunity right now to hone that discernment, to come up with your own truth based upon the information that you have sought the answers for independently from someone else giving you the narrative. You write your own story, yes, but there are so many that are not aware of that, so many that don't know that are stuck in a survival state of fight or flight. They're not thinking like that. And they need more people to move out of that state of mind to help them learn how. So this is a call to action, a call, a caution. Please, please, make up your own opinion independently from anyone else around you. What is right? What is wrong? Let it be your truth, not someone else's, yours. And you are not obligated to share that. What you are obligated to do when you know something to be wrong is to not allow it in the essence of speaking to it being wrong. If you're in a parking lot and you see somebody being mugged and you have Mason or you have a phone, you can call the cops. Are you just going to walk by or are you going to do something? If you see an animal that is suffering needlessly, maybe they're incredibly thirsty or they're very hungry. Can you walk by? Sure. Sometimes people they can. Maybe it's well, it's food or water out of my child's mouth. But what you could do that could be compassionate then would be to have mercy, to bring that animal to someone who maybe can or maybe does, that can ease their suffering, however that may end up being, because there are so many scenarios. And I've been through a lot, and I know some of you hearing this, you're just like, if you've made it to this point, some of you maybe like you've had to come back a few times. If you share your story with others, and it's not like you have to share with the whole world. If you don't want to and you just want to share it with one person because you know it'll help them, you've touched a life. There is karma, good karma in that. Because sometimes all the people need to know when they feel alone is to know that someone else has overcome what they are going through. And they know then that it's possible. That this too shall pass, becoming true. It could be the difference between that person being here and their unique light being present to contribute to our world being a better place and them not. It's not that it's on you. It's always their choice. It's between them and this being of love, of light. But you were there, you had the opportunity, you had the wisdom, you allowed them to know that you overcame it, so it's possible, so they don't feel like it's just it's not surmountable. Then it's not in your hands anymore. It's between them and the divine. And I use those words because I don't have another word to use for it. And I know it sounds like I'm really religious, and I am not really a religious person. As a channel, I follow love. Your relationship with whatever you want to call this being, this force, this whatever word makes you feel the most comfortable. It is yours, and it doesn't belong to anyone else. You are unique. There is no one else in the world just like you. So your relationship will be unique. Our brain waves change when we begin to open to the concept of connecting with that force, that energy. And that connection is yours. It doesn't belong to anyone else. And that may be part of why this warning is coming through right now the way it is. And why some of the topics that have been covered. There's a reason I may not know, but it's not for me to know. The concern is that when we make that change, if we make that change where we install hardware into our brains, that it's specifically going to intervene, alter our ability to connect to that. And nothing has the right to do that. The scariest projection into this future, down that path, should we follow that path, is that our children will be born with this already installed. It'll be part of the birthing process. Just like when you have the umbilical cord cut, it'll be part of having the vaccinations. Instead, it'll be like, oh, we got to update this hardware and update that. And it's very, very muchly like the worst possible timeline, that one. And I don't think we're going to choose that one. In fact, I know we're not, because I'm here right now being this channel and this is coming through. And even if one of you hears this and starts to think constructively about it and comes up with your own truth, there is a ripple effect out from you, and it changes everything. even if it's 5 minutes of this channel, really hit home? Really hit home? And you were like, all right, I'm going to think about that. I'm going to come to my own mind on that. Or maybe you already know something. Maybe you were already connecting the dots. And things seem to be getting more and more complicated. It is vital to make space for the simple, to be balanced, to be that tree that's connected to the salt of the earth, toes in the dirt. I just had the country song. Toes in the water, ass in the sand, not a worry in the world, a PBR in my hand. To have that time to just be. People may not know what you do when they see you. They may not understand how much you work for the greater good. You are a warrior. Wherever you are, wherever you're listening to this, you are a human being, and we all have that in common, and you are a warrior because you still have hope. And that takes strength. And you guard it. You're not alone in that. Because if you still have hope, others can still have hope. If you overcame, they need to know that, because that feeds their hope. That expands it. It reaffirms it. Thank you very much for listening to today's reading and channeling. The divine within me honors the divine within you. Namaste.